So, in this episode, we're talking about how being safe has negatively affected your money experience. But before we dive into today's episode, I am Tamara Tamu, bringing you another soul fulfilled episode of Unleashed Alchemy, where on this channel we talk about going against the grain so that you can have a spiritual revolution in your life, so you can experience spiritual liberation and ecstasy in every single part of your life. Doesn't that sound exciting? And if you are looking for more one-on-one support in your spiritual odyssey, I offer that, okay? Based on my experience, based on the lens of metaphysics, based on what I have experienced on my own, through my own many different spiritual awakenings. I shared my process with you. And so I am taking on clients, one-on-one clients now. Book a call with me to see how I can support you on your spiritual odyssey. So let's get into today's episode. So we're talking about the safety link, and we are still in our money series. All right, this has been so much fun. It's my first time doing something like this. I've enjoyed it. So you'll see me looking here because I'm looking at my notes. So the safety link. So first, we're talking about how religious programming and other programming has negatively affected your money. And part of that is through a safety link. What do I mean by that? So here's an example. So growing up, when I was growing up, if you grew up in a religion, perhaps you had the same experience, or even if you didn't have a religious experience, it can still be applied to your life, all right? So growing up, I would always hear, I would always hear, I was surrounded by adults that would always say things like, I sacrificed what I truly wanted to do so that I could be a woman of God, or so that I could be a strong man of God. I sacrificed my dream so that I could make sure that I was doing what God called me to do. That never made sense to me, even as a child. Because as a child, I had this connection that I could not explain. I had this realization that God was here. God was not out there. God was here. Okay, so the image that was given to me, no, I didn't embrace it. However, it got into my subconscious. All right. I did my best to hold on to the vision that I had of God here, but eventually that programming got into my subconscious. But I got back to it, okay? So anyway, which is why I'm bringing you this video. So anyway, I would hear, adults around me say that, and it never made sense, because I thought, if you have a desire, if you have a dream, why would this God that is supposed to be so loving want to take that away from you? Why would this God that I heard people talking about, why wouldn't that God want you to live in that? I would always question that, never question it out loud, because that was forbidden, but it was always a question that played out in my mind. So my vision of my life, I always tiptoed around it. Why? Even after I left church, I was no longer affiliated with any type of religion or any type of church. That programming was still pulsating within my nervous system. That idea, that programming, also led people to say, and to even send out the message to other people. When someone would say, well, I desire to do this, or I want to do this, it was always followed up with, well, did you make sure that that's what God wants you to do? Maybe you need to wait and hear from God, or you need to wait on God. Well, guess what? For many people, including myself, that whole phrase of waiting on God became a crutch. It became a safety net. It became a safety net. So, that safety net, even though I didn't say it subconsciously, it was running my life. That was the operating system that was running my life, and it played out in everything. So, let me give you an example. So, I had at the beginning of my, I guess you could say my career, my working life, whatever, I had an apparel business that I wanted, okay? And this is just one example because this story played out in all parts of my life. So I had this idea of this brand, this whole entire apparel brand that I wanted. And I would say that and voice that to people around me. But I was always routed back to, oh, you want to make sure that you get a good job. Why the good job? Because that was safety. It was safety. And it was interesting because going to get a good job, no one ever said, well, did you ask, did you wait on God to tell you if getting a good job was for you? What I noticed is, and let me see if I can word this so that it makes sense. What I noticed is that if there was a desire that did not fall into some type of ordered step, or if there was no ordered step to what you desired, or if there was no, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 to what you wanted, it was considered unsafe. Okay? If it was something that was considered to be outlandish, perhaps like, going to study the arts, or going to live in another country, or going to live in another state, anything considered to be outside of the box, that was when everyone said, well, you want to make sure that that's what God wants you to do. You see? So I carried that. So back to the apparel business. So my apparel business had many iterations, okay? So my aesthetic was always wild, loud colors, loud designs, sexy silhouettes. However, to fit into what would be called mainstream aesthetics, the experts were saying, keep the looks simple for the majority, for more sales. Keep the looks, I'm going to say cheap, for the majority. The experts' idea was considered safe, which coincided with the safety identity that I was operating from. And the truth was, there was nothing simple about my designs at all. Okay? So I settled for producing these simple looks. Wasn't happy with, anytime I had a photo shoot, I wasn't happy with it. I pretended to be, it was okay, but it still wasn't grasping me. So I certainly could not expect for customers to look at it and grasp them. It wasn't even grasping me, and I was the designer. Okay? So I bring that up as one example. So during one of the first spiritual rebirth that I had, I realized that making decisions purely based on what is safe kept me in a self-imposed box and kept my true self hidden, okay? Also, from that program view of what is safe, it causes a person to think that what is considered to be safe, or causes a person to think that they have to get permission from someone or some people outside of them. And then what is considered safe initially comes from someone else telling you what is secure for you. And I'm going to read an excerpt from my book, a portion of my book. One person's safety ceiling could very well be your coffin, which is why many people have grown accustomed to existing in a way that may appear realistic or logical to those looking on the outside, while that individual is silently suffocating. Okay? So, what is really unsafe? Here's the ironic part about all of this. What is unsafe is accepting the least of what you came here to experience. That is most hazardous. That is the most hazardous action that we can submit to, is accepting the least of what we came here to experience, because we're waiting on some force out there to tell us what to do, because we're waiting for permission from someone outside of us to tell us to take action. Accepting the least is to avoid surrendering to your soul's vision and avoiding your power to create. And see, that's the thing. Many of us stay in that safety net because it's not that we don't know that we are powerful. It's that we're actually afraid of being powerful, because if we were to say, if we were to ask people, well, who would you be if the opinions of other people weren't even an object, if the opinions of other people weren't even a thing? We would hear all types of just grandiose, beautiful, cosmic, out of this world responses. But because people are so worried about what other people think of them or how they're going to look, they avoid their true soul's vision because they're too attached. They've allowed themselves to be too attached to someone else's programmed lens. But you don't have to look through anybody else's lens. You look through your own lens. That's the beauty of all of this. You can look through your own cosmic lens. Our nervous system was designed to experience peace, calm, and harmony. Okay? Peace, calm, and harmony. That is natural. That is what is natural to us. So where does complete peace, calm, and harmony come in? We can experience that regularly when we allow our essence to be fully expressed. When our consciousness is elevated, we can experience life in all of its aspects in enchanting ways all the time. This is not just a one-off thing, but enchanting ways. That's plural. Every single day, in all aspects. Okay, and oftentimes, many times, that is going to look and appear to be unsafe to people who have not yet elevated their consciousness. All right, so that is it for this part of the series. I will return to you for another part of the series. We're almost done here. If you have any questions for me, leave them in the comments. Don't forget to book a call with me so that we can talk to each other and see how I can support you one-on-one in your spiritual odyssey. All right, until next time, cheers.